The title of Knight Bachelor is the basic rank granted to a man who has been knighted by the monarch but not inducted as a member of one of the organized orders of chivalry. It is a part of the British honours system. Knights Bachelor are the most ancient sort of British knight. The rank existed during the 13th century reign of King Henry III, but Knights Bachelor rank below knights of chivalric orders. A man who is knighted is formally addressed as Sir First Name Surname or Sir First Name and his wife as Lady Surname. The designation bachelor in this context conveys the concept of junior in rank. Criteria: knighthood is usually conferred for public service. Amongst its recipients are all male judges of His Majesty's High Court of Justice in England. It is possible to be a knight bachelor and a junior member of an order of chivalry without being a knight of that order. This situation has become rather common, especially among those recognized for achievements in entertainment. For instance, Sir Michael Caine, Sir Billy Connolly, Sir M. O'Farah, Sir Michael Gambon, Sir Barry Gibb, Sir Anthony Hopkins, Sir Derek Jacobi, Sir Elton John, Sir Brian May, and Sir Ian McKellen are commanders of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, CBE, Sir Tom Jones, Sir Van Morrison, Sir Cliff Richard, and Sir Patrick Stewart are officers of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, OBE, while Sir Nick Faldo, Sir Lewis Hamilton, Sir Paul McCartney, and Sir Richard Starkey, Ringo Starr, are members of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, MBE. None of them would be entitled to use the honorific Sir by virtue of their membership of the order alone, but as they are all also Knights Bachelor, they are entitled to preface their names with that title. Honorifics and post-nominal letters. Knights Bachelor may prefix Sir to their forenames, and wives of knights may prefix Lady to their surnames. The award originated in the Middle Ages. There are no post-nominal letters associated with the honor, nor can it be awarded to women. They are appointed Dames Commander of the Order of the British Empire instead. Insignia. Until 1926, Knights Bachelor had no specific insignia which they could wear, but in that year, King George V issued a warrant authorizing the wearing of a breast badge on all appropriate occasions by Knights Bachelor. This badge is worn on the left side of the coat or outer garment. Measuring 2 + 3/8 inches, 60 mm, in length and 1 + 3/8 inches, 35 mm, in width, it is described in heraldic terms as follows. Upon an oval medallion of vermilion, enclosed by a scroll, a cross-hilt sword belted and sheathed, pommel upwards, between two spurs, rowels upwards, the whole set about with the sword belt, all gilt. In 1973, Queen Elizabeth II issued a further warrant authorizing the wearing on appropriate occasions of a neck badge, of smaller size, and a miniature medal. In 1988, a new certificate of authentication, a Knight Bachelor's only personal documentation, was designed by the College of Arms. Imperial Society. The Imperial Society of Knights Bachelor was founded for the maintenance and consolidation of the dignity of Knights Bachelor in 1908, and obtained official recognition from the sovereign in 1912. The Society keeps records of all Knights Bachelor, in their interest. For over 1500 years, the honor of knighthood has been bestowed by our sovereign on those who have given particular service to the nation. For centuries, that service was usually in arms, as reflected by the designation Knight Bachelor, probably deriving from the Norman French bataillere, meaning one who fought on the battlefield, and by the installation as a knight being effected by the imposition of the royal sword to the shoulder of the individual being honored. The Imperial Society of Knights Bachelor was founded in 1908, being granted the title Imperial by His Majesty King George V, to act as the registry for Knights Bachelor and to uphold the dignity of the designation. In addition to keeping a register of all those granted the honor, the Society, a registered charity, now for example maintains the Chapel of Knights Bachelor in St. Paul's Cathedral, where it holds its annual service of dedication, and provides guidance and advice on protocol and in relation to the use of the designation. We were particularly honored that Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth was patron of the Society from 1975 to 2022. On May 3, 2024, His Majesty King Charles III graciously accepted the patronage of the society. The Imperial Society maintains the modern spirit of knighthood, and its members, all Knights Bachelor, continue their tradition of service. There is no female counterpart to Knight Bachelor. The lowest knightly honor that can be conferred upon a woman is Dame Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, DBE, which is one rank higher than Knight Bachelor, being the female equivalent of KBE or Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, which is the next male knightly rank above Knight Bachelor. Only citizens of Commonwealth realms can be created Knights Bachelor. People of other nationalities are generally made honorary KBEs. Knight Bachelor, most ancient, albeit lower ranking, form of English knighthood, with its origin dating to the reign of Henry III in the 13th century. The feudalization of England that followed the Norman conquest of 1066 integrated the knights, then around 5,000 in number, into the new system. Most of the knights received lands from the barons they served. Half a century later, scutage, the payment of money in lieu of serving as a knight, prompted the appearance of landless knights, the bachelarii of England, who would undertake the service owed to the barons by the subtenants. These landless knights were the forerunners of the Knights Bachelor, usually poor and often young, and fought under the command of a more senior knight. They did not belong to an order such as the Garter or the Thistle, but they could be promoted to the status of Knight of the Bath, which did not become the Order of the Bath until 1725, or be granted that status ab initio. James I of Great Britain created a registry in the 17th century for Knights Bachelor, but this eventually lapsed. The Imperial Society of Knights Bachelor, founded in 1908, has since attempted to obtain a uniform registration of every knight created. In 1926 a badge for Knights Bachelor depicting a sheathed sword between two spurs was approved and adopted, and in 1965 the ancient church of St. Bartholomew the Great, at Smithfield in London, became their chapel. The Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, British Order of Knighthood instituted in 1917 by King George V to reward both civilian and military wartime service, although currently the honor is bestowed for meritorious service to the government in peace as well as for gallantry in wartime. In 1918 a separate military division of the order was created. The 5 classes of both civil and military divisions, listed in descending order and conferred on men and women equally, are Knight and Dame Grand Cross, GBE, Knight and Dame Commander, KBE and DBE, respectively, Commander, CBE, Officer, OBE, and Member, MBE. Conferment of the 2 highest classes entails admission into knighthood, if the candidate is not already a knight or dame, and the right to the title of Sir or Dame as appropriate. Knights and Dames Grand Cross, together with Knights of the Garter and of the Thistle, may be granted the use of supporters with their arms. Appointments are usually made on the recommendation of the British Secretary of State for Defence and the Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs. The officers of the order are Prelate, the Lord Bishop of London, King of Arms, Registrar, Secretary, Dean, Dean of St. Paul's, and Gentleman Usher of the Purple Rod. The chapel of the order is in the crypt of St. Paul's Cathedral, London. The insignia bear likenesses of King George V and Queen Mary, together with the motto "For God and the Empire." Associated with this order is the British Empire Medal, BAME, instituted by George V. This award for meritorious service is given to both civilians and military personnel who are not eligible for admission into any of the 5 classes of the order. Chivalry, the knightly class of feudal times. The primary sense of the term in Europe in the Middle Ages is knights, or fully armed and mounted fighting men. Thence the term came to mean the gallantry and honor expected of knights. Later the word came to be used in its general sense of courtesy. In English law chivalry meant the tenure of land by knight service. The Court of Chivalry instituted by Edward III, with the Lord High Constable and Earl Marshal of England as joint judges, had summary jurisdiction in all cases of offences of knights and generally as to military matters. The concept of chivalry in the sense of honorable and courteous conduct expected of a knight was perhaps at its height in the 12th and 13th centuries and was strengthened by the Crusades, which led to the founding of the earliest orders of chivalry, the Order of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, Hospitallers, and the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, Templars, both originally devoted to the service of pilgrims to the Holy Land. In the 14th and 15th centuries the ideals of chivalry came to be associated increasingly with aristocratic display and public ceremony rather than service in the field. Knight, now a title of honor bestowed for a variety of services, as in the British system of nobility and peerage, but originally in the European Middle Ages a formally professed cavalryman. The first medieval knights were professional cavalry warriors, some of whom were vassals holding lands as fiefs from the lords in whose armies they served, while others were not enfeoffed with land. See also knight service. The process of entering knighthood often became formalized. A youth destined for the profession of arms might from the age of 7 or so serve his father as a page before joining the household of his father's suzerain, perhaps at the age of 12, for more advanced instruction not only in military subjects but also in the ways of the world. During this period of his apprenticeship he would be known as a damasiat, literally lordling, or varlet, or valet, German, Knapp, until he followed his patron on a campaign as his shield-bearer, écuyer, or esquire, or as the bearer of his weapons, armiger. When he was adjudged proficient and the money was forthcoming for the purchase of his knightly equipment, he would be dubbed knight. The ceremonial of dubbing varied considerably. It might be highly elaborate on a great feast day or on a royal occasion, or it could be simply performed on the battlefield, and the dubbing knight might use any appropriate formula that he liked. A common element, however, was the use of the flat of a sword blade for a touch on the shoulder, i.e., the accolade of knighthood as it survives in modern times. As knighthood evolved, a Christian ideal of knightly behavior and chivalry came to be accepted, involving respect for the church, protection of the poor and the weak, loyalty to one's feudal or military superiors, and preservation of personal honor. The nearest that the ideal ever came to realization, however, was in the Crusades, which, from the end of the 11th century, brought the knights of Christian Europe together in a common enterprise under the auspices of the Church. Knights dubbed at Christ's tomb were known as Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. During the Crusades the first orders of knights came into being, the Hospitallers of St. John of Jerusalem, later the Knights of Malta, the Order of the Temple of Solomon, Templars, and, rather later, the Order of St. Lazarus, which had a special duty of protecting leper hospitals. These were truly international and of an expressly religious nature both in their purpose and in their form, with celibacy for their members and a hierarchical structure, Grand Master, Pillars of Lands, or Provincial Masters, Grand Priors, Commanders, Knights, resembling that of the Church itself. But it was not long before their religious aim gave place to political activity as the orders grew in numbers and in wealth. At the same time, crusading orders with a rather more national bias came into being. In Spain, for the struggle against the Muslims there or for the protection of pilgrims, the orders of Calatrava and of Alcantara and Santiago, St. James, were founded in Castile between 1156 and 1171. Portugal had the Order of Avis, founded about the same time, but Aragon's Order of Montesa, 1317, and Portugal's Order of Christ were not founded until after the dissolution of the Templars. The greatest order of German knights was the Teutonic Order. These national crusading orders followed a course of worldly aggrandizement like that of the international orders, but the crusades in Europe that they undertook, no less than the international enterprises in Palestine, would long attract individual knights from abroad or from outside their ranks. Between the end of the 11th century and the middle of the 13th, a change took place in the relationship of knighthood to feudalism. The feudal host, whose knights were enfeoffed landholders obliged to give 40 days' service per year normally, had been adequate for defense and for service within a kingdom, but it was scarcely appropriate for the now more frequent long-distance expeditions of the time, whether crusades or sustained invasions such as those launched in the Anglo-French Wars. The result was twofold. On the one hand, the kings often resorted to distraint of knighthood, that is, to compelling holders of land above a certain value to come and be dubbed knights. On the other hand, the armies came to be composed more and more largely of mercenary soldiers, with the knights, who had once formed the main body of the combatants, reduced to a minority as it were to a class of officers. The gradual demise of the Crusades, the disastrous defeats of knightly armies by foot soldiers and bowmen, the development of artillery, the steady erosion of feudalism by the royal power in favor of centralized monarchy, all these factors spelled the disintegration of traditional knighthood in the 14th and 15th centuries. Knighthood lost its martial purpose and, by the 16th century, had been reduced to an honorific status that sovereigns could bestow as they pleased. It became a fashion of modish elegance for the sophisticated nobles of a prince's entourage. A great number of secular knightly orders were established from the late Middle Ages onward, for example, to name but a few, the most noble Order of the Garter, Order of the Golden Fleece, the most distinguished Order of Saint Michael and Saint George, the most ancient most noble Order of the Thistle, and the most honorable Order of the Bath. These honors were reserved for persons of the highest distinction in the nobility or in government service or, more generally, for persons distinguished in various professions and arts. In the United Kingdom, knighthood is today the only title still conferred by a ceremony in which sovereign and subject both take part personally. In its modern form, the subject kneels and the sovereign touches him or her with a drawn sword, usually a sword of state, first on the right shoulder, then on the left. The male knight uses the prefix sir before his personal name, the female knight the prefix dame. Thank you for watching this video.